Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Franklin Dell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing. He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
How you like that, boy?
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Oh no!
Nation, Waldorf Nation, hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's Tuesday. Got a bunch of fun stories for you, including the return of Jeff Fartenberry. I'm not kidding. You're gonna love that story. That's fun for us, not for him. We got Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, feeling some consequences, maybe a little bit, tiny bit. We got me agreeing with something Donald Trump says. Oh my God. Wait. I know. Good reason. There's good reason. So we're going to talk about that. We got Sean Hannity versus Social Security. They're coming for your Social Security, of course, as always. And then Howard Stern versus Kyrie Irving. That's a fun story as well. So a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about today on the show. Please give us a like and a share if you haven't already. And yes, let me just update everybody in case you're worried. I did change the batteries today in my mic, so I had a little bit of some insanity in the control room yesterday, and changing the changing the batteries to my receiver live on the air because I forgot to do it. Mondays, let me tell you, Mondays, literally the worst. Again,
there's insanity in the control room.
And also,
Who's got a hammer?
Well, we got a hammer. Let's be the hammer and take down these conservatives in, of course, a figurative, not a literal way, with biting commentary. All right, so they've been saying they're coming for your Social Security for half a century, when in reality they're actually trying to cut Social Security. Yeah. Well, like I said, Sean Hannity literally talking about cutting Social Security. So we're going to talk about that. S-Bloom85, happy birthday to your father. And glad, by the way, to see you resubbing for 11 months. So congratulations on that as well. Thank you. Thank you for also being a mod on the channel. I appreciate it. All right. So let's see. It's fun to watch you panic makes it all. I don't ever panic. What are you talking about? I'm cool at cucumber. 100%. 100%. I don't know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. All right, anyway, please like and share if you haven't already. Hey, you know what? Great way to support the show is to do what Scott S. Bloom 85 did and subscribe. Better if you have Amazon Prime. That helps. Dango Bango, happy belated birthday on Saturday. You are not old, 25, fairly young still, so don't worry. In fact, I'm 38, and look at me, I'm still young. I feel better than I did when I was 25. So, just to let you know, isn't Social Security a socialist program? I mean, kind of, yeah. I mean, you pay into it. Everybody pays into it. And guess what? Everybody, when they turn 65, qualifies and gets the money. So, or when they retire, sometimes they can retire early, but of course, or take benefits for disability, but that impacts the amount that you get for payments, but et cetera. But it's essentially universal, and that's what makes it an amazing program. That's why it's so incredibly popular. But we'll get to some of that stuff when we talk about what Hannity said. So we'll do that. All right. Okay. 25, old, LOL. 35, you guys are too old. No. Never. Hey, I am 35. My bones are fine, thank you. Crack. Oh. All right. Kidding. Just kidding. All right. So let's move on. Again, we got a first fun story. We're going to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene and how there might be some consequences to the stuff that she was saying. Interesting. I got buttons. Pushing too many. All right. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has continued to spread former President Donald Trump's outright lies in the election, might be regretting some of that. So now it turns out that the allegations of massive voter fraud, you remember the
dumps, big massive dumps
of ballots. Oh my God, ballot harvesting and all the many different things of fraud. Well, it turns out that all those allegations being constantly repeated into the ear of GOP voters has turned some of them off. Now, of course, you turn some of those voters off, and guess what? Well, they're not going to vote, right? You tell people, that, hey, if your vote doesn't count at all, then what's the point of turning out? Well, guess what? They're not going to turn out. And now she has a poll, and she looks at it, and she's like, oh, no. What have I done?
Oh, no.
All right. So here's what she said to her electorate. This is on Twitter. She posted this. I recently conducted a poll on Georgia's elections, and my constituents felt their votes would count during a telethon hall. Sadly, 4% said they won't even vote due to voter fraud. This is wrong. Legal votes by ours are just as important as stopping illegal ones. Oh no! Could it have been that the giant lie that I've been telling my voters could end up biting me in the ass? Well, to be fair, Marjorie Taylor Greene massively won her district by like over 50 points. So 4% is not going to really make too big of a difference for her. At least, if this next election turns out to be like her previous election, we don't actually know in this case, because you never really know until things get real close to an election. But that said, it turns out that if you tell everybody that voting is rigged, it doesn't matter, they're not going to vote. And so far, they've got 4% of voters in Georgia specifically think, well, fuck it, I'm not going to vote. Well, I mean, who would have seen that one coming? Oh, right, everybody. So now she followed up by tweets noting that Republican Governor Brian Kemp would have lost against Stacey Abrams if just 4% of the Georgia GOP electorate opted out. So she's saying, oh my God, the amount of voters that have decided to sit out the next election could mean that we could have had Stacey Abrams. Oh, why couldn't they have sat out that election? Abrams would have been a lot better than Brian Kemp, that's for sure. That said, it has to be noted that Brian Kemp's administration did voter suppression. They closed a ton of polling places. They purged the voter rolls. They got rid of ballots with mismatched signatures. So now the ACLU notes, and they do amazing work on this. They note that voters are disproportionately affected by this, or that certain groups of voters are disproportionately affected by the signature matching requirement. For example, older people, your signature kind of, changes over time. Disabled people, if, for example, you lose the use of your right arm, if you're right-handed, you got to write with your left hand. You also have trans people who change their names, literally. You have people who get divorced, again, changing their last name from what they registered with. Immigrants who might have not mastered the English language or how to write their name in English, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you have a lot of people who are legitimate voters, who are American citizens, but have their ballots tossed out because of a signature mismatch. So those people get tossed from the rolls, and they could number in the thousands, okay? Now, despite all of that, Abrams still came very close to beating out Kemp. She actually lost by about 54,723 votes, or what amounts to actually less than 4% of the vote. Oh, uh-oh. Now, of course, Green blames this on other things because, of course, she says this: combine this with mass absentee ballot harvesting, and Republicans will never win again in Georgia. Oh, don't I wish? Don't we all kind of wish that would happen? Now, look, ballot harvesting is legal. It is a legal thing, and all it is, and it sounds like, oh, they're gonna grow. They're growing these ballots in the fields, right? Because they take the dead people, and they take their names, and they plant ballots, and then they're growing, and they harvest them, and then they turn them into the election official. No, it's ridiculous. No, this is the process that third parties like volunteers or election workers will gather ballots for voters instead of having voters submit them themselves. Now you might think, wait, why would you want somebody else to do that? Why can't they go do it themselves? Now, once again, this is advantageous to people who are poor, who are disabled and can't leave the house, or have very difficult time with mobility, or again, if you're poor and you rely on public transportation, people who are minorities living in the inner city, people who can't vote on election day because for some goddamn reason, election day is not considered a holiday in this country. So I guess if you're working your two uniquely American jobs, or at least you were before the pandemic, you don't exactly have time to go down and wait, especially in areas where they have closed down polling places, and places like in Georgia, for example, where we showed you pictures of gigantic lines where people were waiting for 4 to 6 hours to go and vote. You ain't got time. So it is important for this, ballot harvesting, for people to go up and pick up ballots on behalf of people and then turn them in. That's not voter fraud. That's literally helping people who are disadvantaged get their votes counted. There's nothing illegal about that. But you can see what the real problem here is for Marjorie Taylor Greene. You see, and for any Republican, I would say, anything that makes it easier for people who tend to vote for Democrats, regardless of the reason, is bad, and they want to make it illegal. And of course, the reason that these groups tend to vote for Democrats is because the Democrats generally had supported policies that tend to help groups of people. Now, of course, it's a little less true now than it was before, because the Democratic Party is largely a pro-corporate party, at least when it comes to economic issues, but when it comes to social issues, they definitely do help out marginalized groups way more than Republicans do. So there is that difference here. I think on a lot of economic issues, Democrats are somewhat indistinguishable from Republicans, although, you know, there is, of course, a lot of good social spending stuff in that $3.5 trillion reconciliation package, like childcare and stuff. That's all stuff that Republicans are, you know, inherently opposed to. The Democrats at least are attempting to pass. So, you know, let's just be, you know, fair. Let's be honest here. But generally, you know, Democrats tend to support a more corporate agenda that is more friendly towards business. But the people who are ultimately slaves to business are, you know, Republicans, the right wing, 100% wholly bought off by corporations, and openly despise poor people. So that's it. Okay. Now, the role of the government, and this is what's important here, the role of the government is supposed to be to help people, right? To help the citizens. And so that's generally why these groups tend to support Democrats over Republicans, right? Because they have policies that are popular that help the working class. And now, of course, conservatives scream, no, they don't. It's not. Well, who the hell is going to help the disabled then? I mean, for-profit corporations aren't going to help the disabled. Charity is not going to help. Charity, by the way, charity, and I'm not saying charity bad. What I'm saying is charity is unable to keep up with the need. Okay? Charity will never have the reach and the resources that government is able to have. So understand that this is why you have to have government that works for regular people, government that works for the working class, for the disabled, for minorities, etc. Now, Republicans in office say, no government, no services, everything should go to the rich, and that's freedom. Now, of course, Democrats say, well, we should means test everything. No, I don't like that either. I don't think we should have means testing. I think everything should be universal. We should have universal health care, Medicare for all. We should have universal pre-K, universal free college for everybody. And that's stuff that, unfortunately, the Democratic Party, in theory, there are some that do say that they support it, but so far their actions don't really show us that they do support that. And so they tend to go for more of like a means-tested, measured approach. And we see this all the time. Even though their policies do generally still tend to help people, they could help a lot more if they got rid of that stuff, that means testing. So that said, Republicans say, no, but we don't want to just means test. We're just going to want to get rid of it. We don't want money going to poor people. And so no government services, nothing like that. And by the way, even when they don't say those things out loud, when they say, oh, we're protecting Social Security, we're going to protect this, protect that. No, their policies still support giving everything to the rich, to the donors. They do it through giant tax cuts, deregulation. They give money directly to corporations. For example, you have subsidies to oil companies and gas companies. And not only that, they don't even have to present new policy positions. All they have to do is just defend giant tax cuts for the rich, which they continue to do, and these giant oil subsidies, et cetera, et cetera. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene, getting back to her, Marjorie Taylor Greene loves to rail against what she calls corporate communism. Now, corporate communism is just basically capitalism. That's what it is. And by the way, she only rails against that because companies will pretend to be on the side of black people and minorities because it sells them more products. And again, that's how capitalism works. Woke corporations, no, they're not. No, all they want to do is just sell more stuff. And that's it. That's it. And it turns out being more inclusive to people means more people buying your junk. That's what that's about. All right. So again, Marjorie Taylor Greene, total fraud. The big lies, total fraud. The great reset that they all rail about with, the whole election thing. Oh yeah, well we're gonna go in and we're gonna do a great reset. All the people who were voted in 2020, they're gonna get replaced by the real leaders. Yes, the ones who were not elected by voter fraud, which of course will all happen to be Republicans in their mind. But not just Republicans, but super pro-Trump Republicans. No, that's also a gigantic fraud. The only fraud here that is not real is mass voter fraud. And yet, of course, Republican voters understand that they are buying into this so much that at the end of the day, they might not actually vote, which is incredibly ironic. And understand too that the whole reason the party had originally pushed this stuff, this voter fraud lie, and they have been doing this for decades. This is not new. The whole reason they've been pushing this is to do voter suppression, prevent Democrats from voting, because they admitted openly, the godfather of the modern conservative movement, Paul Weyrich, even admitted during his speech, hey, the more we drive the numbers of people that vote down, the better we do in elections. The less people vote, the better we do. So let's drive down the vote. I don't want more people voting. I don't want more good government. No, I want people to vote against that, and I want people to vote for us so we can dismantle the government. So then we can take all the money. And that's it. That's the reality. But of course, now we have Fox News president, or we had Fox News president, Donald Trump, who believed pretty much in every conspiracy theory brought before him, okay, actually believed the shit, believed the bullshit, believed the lie of voter fraud. And of course, because it serves him, all right, and now, since he's cult leader supreme, now even more Republicans are actually drawn into believing it, instead of using it as, of course, the cynical tactic that it was to try to enact voter, so-called voter fraud, or I'm sorry, voter ID, et cetera, voter suppression laws or pro-voter suppression laws in places where their majority might be challenged. Now they actually do believe it, and it's literally a part of, their identity as a conservative now, that they have to believe that the election was stolen from Donald Trump because of mass voter fraud. And if that ends up hurting the Republican politicians in the long run by people choosing not to vote, well, I mean, that's kind of ironic. But that said, the important thing to focus on is the fact that there is, regardless of whether the Republican voters turn out, remember, you still have Republicans in power in the states right now that are doing everything they can to still do voter suppression of minorities, Democratic voters. And so you still have to watch out for that, because even if their voters, some of them give up, they're still going to try to suppress more in order to make sure that they continue to, that they continue to win elections unchallenged. All right. Moving on. Let's get to the Colin Powell story. Dark Canuck says from the chat section, maybe that's the problem. They look at healthcare and Social Security as a charity, not a right. Well, they definitely look at it as something that they don't benefit much from as well. And so it's something that they want to get rid of, because it, again, when it comes to being conservative, usually greed, their own greed, gets in the way of anything else. All right. Why does Trump always have to be an asshole when talking to the American people? One of his rare moments, he admitted it was his personality that hurted him, and that moment just came. That's a good point. Like I said, I'm getting right into this story. Former President Donald Trump went after former Secretary of State Colin Powell after he died from COVID-19 complications. So now Trump released a short statement commenting on his passing, and it was not kind. So let's just get into it. He said, "Wonderful to see Colin Powell, who made big mistakes in Iraq and famously so-called weapons of mass destruction, be treated in death so beautifully by the fake news media. Hope that happens to me someday. He was a classic rhino, if even that, always being the first to attack other Republicans. He made plenty of mistakes, but anyway, may he rest in peace." All right, look, short statement. But here's the thing. So he's actually not wrong about some of this stuff. Look, as crass as it is, he makes points that are valid. And I want to get into this because, look, Colin Powell has made some more than some mistakes. Okay, so look, in Iraq, for example, he literally presented false evidence that led us into a disastrous war that cost, the deaths of 1 million Iraqis, innocent people. And yes, also, to be fair, he has been treated so incredibly well by the news media. Even progressives like Jamal Bowman couldn't help but eulogize him very, very favorably. And of course, the argument is, well, Jeb, look, understand that he's a strong black man, and he's the first to operate these, to be in these positions. And that is an important milestone for black people everywhere. Okay, totally, I agree with that. But at the same time, he's also a strong black man and the first to be in these positions that also led us into a war that killed, brown people, many, many brown people. And so I'm sorry, but, yes, you can definitely say that achievement for a black American is historic, but also point to the fact that the person who occupied that position has did some rather terrible things. Okay. And so, look, no one here is above reproach. So I'm just going to get this out of the way. Donald Trump is, of course, disgusting. We know that. The only reason that he cares is because Powell spoke out against him, called him out for January 6th, which is the correct thing to do. So Trump hated Colin Powell because Colin Powell was mean to Donald Trump. Understand that that's where this criticism comes from. It's not that he actually cares. Trump actually cared about anyone who died as a result of the Iraq war. No, U.S. Trump, they're Muslims. They're Muslims. Of course Donald Trump hates them unless they buy the condos. Trump also avowed racist, classic racist. And again, Powell was the first high-profile black person in these positions of power. He was first the National Security Advisor to Ronald Reagan, then the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and then Secretary of State. But he got there by serving the military-industrial complex. He also, in his records, he downplayed racial tension in the military and also described himself as a realist in the Kissinger school. Kissinger as in Henry Kissinger, who was not a good person. If you're modeling yourself after Henry Kissinger, that's not good. That's not something to be proud of. That's not something to be proud of at all. So now let me give you some details, right, about his record. Not Kissinger's record, but Powell's record. Back in the 1960s, he was stationed in South Korea, and he had prosecuted black soldiers who participated in a race riot on base. Now, at that time, things were actually common because you had black people who served in the military but were not treated like human beings. So, I mean, and of course, the thing about that is, how do you give your life to defend a country that treats you like a second-class citizen? And many black people did. And they did so. And they gave their lives hoping that one day this country would actually treat them as equals. And we still have a long way to go in that. Now, on that, of course, Powell also strongly disagreed with Clinton's don't ask, don't tell policy for gay people in the military. Not because he was like, no, you should be able to serve out and proud. No, he's very socially conservative. And so he didn't want gay people closeted or out at that time to be able to serve in the military. Now, did that change? Eventually, I believe so. And did he, of course, later on say that, oh, yeah, that whole Iraq thing, that is a stain on my legacy. But did he actually come out and really apologize for that and say that what I did was 100% wrong, it was a war crime? No. He never really faced any sort of justice for what he did with Iraq. Now, it's even worse, by the way. Powell was also involved in helping to whitewash the horrific My Lai massacre back in Vietnam. Okay, so now that between 347 and 504 unarmed people were killed by U.S. Army soldiers, led by William Calley and his troops. Now, their victims included elderly men, women, children, and infants. Women, of course, happened to be raped, bodies mutilated. It was horrifying. So now Powell was investigating a letter by an Army specialist named Tom Glenn. So now this is not directly related to the My Lai massacre, but nonetheless, he noticed that American soldiers were having a problem with South Vietnamese civilians. They didn't like them. There was a lot of hatred, there was a lot of bigotry, there was a lot of racism towards the civilians that, of course, they say that they were there to protect from the evil Viet Cong, right? So now the oft-quoted part of Glenn's letter stated that, quote, it would indeed be terrible to find it necessary to believe that an American soldier that harbors such racial intolerance and disregard for justice and human feeling is a prototype of old American national character. Yet the frequency of such soldiers lends credulity to such beliefs. What has been outlined here, and I have not seen, and I have seen not only in my own unit, but also in others we have worked with, and I fear it is universal. If this is indeed the case, it is a problem which cannot be overlooked, but can, through a more firm implementation of the codes of MACV and the Geneva Conventions, perhaps be eradicated. So this person comes out and says, look, I've seen a lot of racism, I've seen a lot of hatred among our own troops towards the South Vietnamese. I think that's a problem. I think we need to get rid of that, especially if we're here to ostensibly protect them. Then we should respect them as human beings. So now Powell was basically there to investigate this, right? And so, and go, okay, so there's some hatred, racism. Okay, I'll look into it, right? We're going to look into this. Now, none of this touched on My Lai, right? In fact, Powell claimed that he didn't even know what the My Lai massacre was until 1970. So now, of course, even before then, there were rumors going around that, you know, something dark and terrible had happened in My Lai, and there, of course, was a military cover-up. And he said that the relationship, in his final report, Powell said that the relationship between soldiers and the citizens of Vietnam were excellent. Quote, in direct refutation of this portrayal is the fact that relations between American divisions and soldiers and the Vietnamese people are excellent. 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 So, oh, that's fascinating. All right, so now, Glenn was not in My Lai when this happened, but the fact that something this horrible could happen to civilians only kind of proved Glenn's point. That if something like this can happen, then yeah, there seems to be a racial problem towards the Vietnamese from the American soldiers. All right. Now, of course, the cover-up attempt also, Colin Powell contributed to with this report is now fairly well known. In fact, this didn't get revealed until 1969, and through the works of intrepid reporting, was actually reported. Now, of course, Henry Kissinger and the State Department, they of course had to go and try to figure out a story to spin for the American people. Oh no, this didn't actually happen. In fact, media went along with this by saying in the original reporting, oh no, they killed 128 communist VC fighters. That's what happened. Yes, it wasn't unarmed women and children and old people. No. This was very dastardly Viet Cong fighters. But no, there were no fighters. There was no resistance. There were no American deaths. I think somebody accidentally, injured themselves with a service, with their own service weapon. And I think that's the only casualty that was reported. And in fact, there were 3 U.S. servicemen who were there who had actually tried to halt the massacre and rescue the hiding civilians. You know what happened to them? Well, up until recently, they were denounced as traitors. They were shunned by U.S. congressmen, including a Democratic representative of South Carolina, Mendel Rivers. So he also happened to be chairman of the House Armed Services Committee at the time. So, yeah. Now, 30 years later, of course, those servicemen were recognized and decorated, one posthumously by the U.S. Army, for shielded non-combatants from harm in a war zone. So it took 30 years for them to admit, oh, right, My Lai massacre, kind of bad. Real bad. Not good. So understand that is the legacy of Colin Powell, how he did contribute with his report to the cover-up of the My Lai massacre. The source notwithstanding, in this case Trump, there's a lot to criticize Powell for, and rightly so. None of that means, of course, that Trump is criticizing Powell out of his love and care for the truth. But the truth is there. And by the way, to answer the question, there were court-martials involved as well. Callie, I believe, was given 25 years of house arrest for this. Yeah, for that. And again, if you read in, and there's a lot of details that I can't really share because honestly, the details are so graphic and terrifying that YouTube would kick this video out. Okay, so I can't go and describe the horror of these war crimes of William Calney. So I suggest that you, if you're really interested in learning about how bad this really was, go and look that up. William Calney and the My Lai massacre, just horrifying. But as I said, Powell helped lie us into a war in Iraq, helped cover up the massacre, and then later on in his career, after never really facing up to those things, served on highly paid corporate boards while enriching lobbyists and donors. And of course, gets lauded by corporate media and polite society, just like George W. Bush, because guess what? He basically spoke out against Donald Trump, while supporting, of course, a lot of Trump's policies. And so, as terrible as Donald Trump is, and by the way, Donald Trump, also a war criminal. I mean, if you look at the spike in the amount of civilian deaths, the Trump administration, under the Trump administration, as a result of him, of course, taking the gloves off the military, because that's one of the things he did. He actually increased not only drone strikes, but also the lethality of drone strikes against civilians, which have already have an incredibly high civilian death toll. And he said, let's do more strikes. Let's do more airstrikes too. Let's drop the Moab on Afghanistan. Remember, he did that as well. And a lot more civilians died under Trump. That said, and of course he was fighting radical Islamic terrorism. Yeah, that's what he was doing. But even after all that, even if you include COVID, he might still have a lower body count than George W. Bush and Colin Powell in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that were started by that administration. So, that just kind of illustrates how in the media, and by the way, again, he's right about the media, nonstop fawning pieces about Colin Powell. They would rather celebrate a polite warmonger because, look, personally, I'm sure Colin Powell was an incredibly nice guy. Oh, yes, a very nice, dignified, et cetera, et cetera. But he still did horrible human rights abuses, crimes. And so Donald Trump, correct about that. It's not to say Trump is better and not worthy of criticism in his own right against him. And that's not even to say that his criticism comes from any desire to make the media better or to be against war criminals. No. Trump's only mad because the media doesn't lionize him the way that they did Colin Powell or John McCain. And that's the thing. Understand that, Trump's pathology, what he desires most is fawning headlines. He wants media, he wants the people that he decries as fake news to say wonderful, nice things about him. That's all he really ever wants. And it's all he's ever wanted. And so that's why he's going on this tear. Again, doesn't care at all about Iraq, doesn't care at all about war crimes, has participated in its own. And yes, of course, what he did to the Kurdish people in pulling our forces out and letting them get massacred. That's a great point, as one of you audience members points out. And so, his points may be valid, but they come from an incredibly empty place. But hey, the broken clock, all right, twice a day. Like the media would ever say anything nice about Trump. What has he ever done that's good? Do you remember, I think it was Brian Williams, when Trump started launching missiles against, I think, Syria? That's when, go watch Brian Williams when he talks about the beautiful missiles. Okay? The beautiful wonder, oh, look at our beautiful weapons to be used. Trump today is the day he became president. The media can't wait to lionize a conservative. It is gross, 100%. It is gross. So understand that the media, that's what makes it corporate media. They will always side, if given a chance, with the polite right-wingers, even when they champion the worst kind of policies. That's how our media is stacked. That's why we do not have a progressive media other than, of course, online on cable news. Why? Because they're all corporate and they're all paid by defense contractors who run ads, and oil companies and pharmaceutical companies who run ads on those networks. So, yeah. All right. Why do you think I call him worst person you know? Go to poor people. And actually, before I do that, I just want to note that I'm not going to, like sugarcoat media, like where the media has failed, because it has. And yes, you can criticize the media for, being too right-wing, too pro-establishment, too pro-war. Because it's true. But my criticism of the media, and a lot of the criticism of the media, unlike from members of, the right wing or from Donald Trump, is that we want to make better, more responsible media. That is not corporate driven. That is not just basically repeating talking points from the defense industry, which is what they have done for a very, very long time. We want a real press that pushes back against, disastrous wars. Okay. Go to Sean Hannity. All right. Fox News host Sean Hannity says he wants to see Social Security eliminated. He admitted this on his radio show. Take a listen.
Social Security is the most expensive program of the federal government. Now, they've let it become like a Ponzi scheme. I think it was Galveston, Texas, that once opted out of the Social Security system, and they did infinitely better on their own without the federal government. Remember, you could work your whole life. They're going to either means test it in the end, or they're going to, raise the age of eligibility pretty much to the day before you're destined to croak. But anyway, it accounts for about 25% of every dollar that Washington spends. It is headed towards insolvency. The unfunded liabilities, how much money the government would need to make up the difference between the money that will be paid into Social Security in the future and benefits that have been promised. That number is $40 trillion. Williamson writes that that's basically $40 trillion, all the money in the world, literally. All of the cash in circulation, all of the deposits in checking accounts and savings accounts adds up to about $40 trillion. That's a pretty big hole. We can't afford all of this. It's not going to work now.
So, all right, that right there is a pretty good case study and how they're going to use big numbers to scare people. Oh my God, $40 trillion. That is all the money in the entire world to go to Social Security without, of course, giving any context. You realize that we spend about, the country spends about $1 trillion, again, collected from taxes, already are all put in a trust fund, etc. That money, again, $1 trillion a year, that would be over the next 40 years. But they just say it's like, oh, $40 trillion. Just like they're saying, we can't afford that $3.5 trillion. You realize that's over 10 years, right? That's over a very large period of time in which, of course, every year we'll be collecting taxes. So, anyway, it's ridiculous, okay? They don't give that context because they want to scare people with those big numbers and to make them think, oh my God, the $40 trillion, we're going to have to pay it right now. We don't have the money. We don't have the money. We do have the money in reality. Now, of course, we also have a lot of, look, the Pandora Papers just came out, right? And that's the accessory to the Panama Papers. It shows how a lot of these wealthy people are literally hiding their money overseas. Or in this case, a lot of people overseas in the Pandora Papers are hiding their money in the United States. The global elite is basically hiding everything from taxation. And so, and I wonder why they say we can't afford, we can't afford Social Security, which, by the way, does not add to the national debt. Social Security doesn't add a penny, or Medicare to the national debt. That is a lie. That is a fallacy, and it's used as a way to attempt to privatize it, and that's ultimately what they want. So now, again, on that, Hannity says, well, yeah, you can work your whole life, but they're going to take away your Social Security because it's a Ponzi scheme, right? Right? Ironically, that's what they want you to do. They want you to work your entire life and not get anything back. I mean, for Hannity, you should just work till you die. That's what they believe. You should work till you die. Who needs retirement? You don't need retirement. I like retirement. And of course, this is a guy who sits and reads a teleprompter all day and makes $36 million a year doing it. You can tell, Sean Hannity, very soft man. Never worked a real job, a hard job in his life. Now, again, he's never did construction, never worked in a factory, never did any of that stuff. I have. I have worked in a job that is physically demanding. A lot of us have. I spent most of my early adult life working in factories. I've worked in different places, welding hitch plates for vehicles, stringing up pontoon boats for rich assholes. I did that. We did that. All that kind of work destroys your body after a while. If you work there for 30, 40 years, like, you're not going to come out in very good shape because it is physically demanding. My grandpa, I know I'm using an anecdotal, story here, but he worked at a ball bearing plant for 40 plus years. You know what that does to your body after 40 years? He needs a new, he had to get a hip and a shoulder replaced. He's more machine than man now. That's what happens when you work those types of jobs. So that's why we need a retirement. That's why people should be able to retire at, 60, 65, whatever. Because their bodies just can't hold up. And even if you don't work in those fields, by the way, I think I tend to believe that there is more to life than working till you die. I'm just saying. Oh, yeah, but Jeff, he does geriatric MMA. I'm glad you brought that up, Ravaging Wolverine, in the Twitch comments. He's a brown belt, and he practices 4 days a week. Oh, no! Ashley.
Oh, no!
Oh, I'm so scared of the brown belt. John Hannity. Come on. All right. Hey, you know what? Good on him, right? Because he's actually got the time and the ability to go and do martial arts. That's wonderful. You can do that? Why not? Great. But look, thing is, another thing, Sean Hannity obviously loves what he does because he gets paid very, very well. And so for work, for him, it's like work, but it actually isn't. And so I would wager that not a lot of people, obviously not a lot of people, get, do what Hannity does, obviously. And so, I think a lot of people, or tons of people, actually hate their jobs and can't wait to retire, and whether or not it destroys their body. And so Social Security is that guarantee of a retirement income. And so, so they can get money, so they can spend time with their family, so they can actually survive. But Hannity says, no, it's a Ponzi scheme. It's going broke. It's going broke. Well, guess what, Sean? I have a solution. It's real easy. See, the reason that the Social Security fund is running low is because you have, obviously, inflation. Now, of course, Social Security does raise how much they pay out because it is tied to inflation. He mentioned that in the show. But you, unfortunately, have a cap of how much you pay into it. So now, when it was first established, you had a cap of I think, and I don't remember if the cap has been raised several times before, but it was 132. I think it was either 132 or $136,000 a year of a payroll cap. So meaning that if we all pay into Social Security, it comes out of our checks, and once you hit that cap, you don't have to pay anymore. So now, the maximum earnings subject to that has been changed. It's now $142,800. Okay? So now, if you're making $36 million a year like Sean Hannity, you're going to hit that cap very quickly. So after you hit the cap, as I mentioned, you're not going to pay anything more into that. So that cap hasn't changed, I think, very significantly over the years, relative to, of course, maximum incomes and inflation. I don't think the people who actually put that cap in the first place imagined people making, billions of dollars a year like Jeff Bezos, or people even relatively poor people like the poor Sean Hannity with his $36 million, making that much money. And so, and also they probably didn't imagine cost of living being so incredibly high, for seniors, and of course for everybody. But here's the thing. Here's my solution, okay? Super, super simple stuff, okay? If you remove the cap, the system becomes solvent until the end of time. Just remove the cap. There you go. So instead of paying, $142,800, and then you're done the year, as soon as you hit that in like 1 or 2 months, if you're Sean Hannity, they just keep paying the same amount into Social Security every paycheck. That's it. Wow. And look, millionaires like Sean Hannity, you think he's going to miss that money? No. Oh, of course not. Now, a person who wants to retire on Social Security, guess what? That money's going to mean the world to them. Why? Because then they'll finally be able to retire, spend time with their family, do the things that they want to do, hobbies, if they're even able to after, 30, 40 years of working. And so, it actually to find some sort of comfort in value at the end of their lives, instead of course, continuing to work for a corporation that for their entire life has been already stealing the excess value of their labor. So one more thing, by the way, as I mentioned, that cost of Social Security, right? Now he said $40 trillion, right? Again, over the next 40 years. But this doesn't matter. The amount that it costs shouldn't actually matter. It doesn't matter to this conversation, doesn't matter to any conversation, really. Why? Because it's a vital service that is guaranteed for all American citizens. To retire in dignity, that is a service. It should not be treated as a program. It is a service. And by the way, it is a universal service. Even Sean Hannity will benefit from this. He'll get money back, and that's fine. Now, what he gets back, of course, will be peanuts compared to what he has already. But he's still going to get the money, and that's fine. That's the way the system is designed. That's why, by the way, it's incredibly popular. Social Security and Medicare are two of the most popular programs in the country. There's a reason, because everybody gets it. Once you hit, 55 or whatever, your retirement age, that's it. You all get it. Everybody's eligible. And that's why the system, everybody pays in, everybody gets out. Everyone in, not everybody out. Okay? So that's why things like that work. And that's why it's so hard to get rid of. And that's why Republicans have to come up with, first, find a way to make it so that the fund will eventually run out of money by not raising the cap, by not doing the simplest fix, because it might affect their bottom lines and affect the ones of their donors. They don't want to pay anymore. They don't want to pay anymore. Oh, no, of course not. And so, again, they cannot stand the fact that other people benefit from Social Security. He is ideologically opposed to poor people getting money from the government after they retire, just like the rest of them. So, Sean Hannity, awful, terrible person. Unfettered greed. That's the Republican Party. All right. All right. It's already been an hour. Holy crap. I guess apparently I'm going to go long. So I've been talking too much. Can you imagine that? Jeez. All right. Try to get through these as quickly as possible. It appears that Howard Stern has had enough of anti-vaxxers. Turning from his week off, he decided to set his sights on NBA player Kyrie Irving for refusing to get vaccinated. Take a look.
You talk about stupid. There's some people who are willing to walk away from millions of dollars and not get vaccinated. And I got to say, they're so stupid, they're putting their mouth where their money is. I got to tell you. It's pretty incredible. One of them is that basketball player.
Kyrie Irving.
He's my favorite dude who's like putting his money where his mouth is. You got to say, in terms of idiots, he's got to be the top idiot in the country right now. Guy's got a chance as a young man to make millions of dollars. All he's got to do is get vaccinated, but he doesn't want to get vaccinated. So
I've never heard a reason why. Did he have a reason?
He doesn't need a reason. It's just that he's stupid. You know, because this guy's got a history of being stupid. He's one of those guys who's a flat earther too. And you know what it is? He doesn't know anything.
Oh boy.
He just knows, well, I can't figure, his mind works in a very strange way. He's like, I can't figure out gravity. So therefore, it probably doesn't exist. And just because they tell me there's gravity doesn't mean there's gravity. Or he goes, all I know is I go to the beach and like I look out at the ocean and I see it's flat. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't give a fuck what they say.
So, little correction, Kyrie Irving. Sorry. But all right. Now, here's the thing. Howard Stern, 100%. Yes. Guess what? Controversial opinion. I believe not getting vaccinated is stupid. I cry all you want about me being mean. Oh, you're discriminating against me because I hate science. Oh, no. No, Snowflake, you're being stupid. And not only are you being stupid, but you're also being selfish. It's been proven by now that the vaccine is safe to use and effective at keeping you alive and out of the hospital. I know. Oh, but Colin Powell just died from COVID-19 and he was double vaccinated. He also had a blood cancer, and which of course affects your immunity. Just 0.004% of all vaccinated Americans who contract COVID do so seriously enough to die from complications involving COVID-19. Most of those people, a large majority, have to be elderly people over the age of 65. I bet a big chunk of them, as a result, had compromised immune systems as part of their medical history. And so people, again, understand vaccinated people are not dying en masse from COVID-19. And by the way, they're also not dying as a result of the vaccine either. Not only that, but they're not injecting microchips into your body. Trust me, do you think a corporation is going to, or the government, is going to waste as much money, even if the technology were available to microchip people through vaccines? Do you think that they would waste that money on your dumbass? Like living out there in like rural Paducah, right? And you're just out there in your town of 500 people that the government is going to be like, I want to know where Bob Smith is. I'm tracking Bob Smith right now. He got vaccinated. And now Bob Smith, he's taking a shit right now. Yes, congratulations. You're really stupid if you believe that. I'm sorry, you're not a smart person if you believe that. Again, this would only be really relegated towards, if there were some sort of insidious plot going on, then they would be tracking journalists, no doubt. They would be tracking rabble-rousers, right? People who are very, very high-profile rabble-rousers. I'm talking like Martin Luther King Jr. type of rabble-rouser, which the FBI, of course, had tried to convince to kill himself in Roblox, okay? So that's the thing. They're not going to go after you, rando-ass person. Your DNA is not being changed, okay? You're not going to become magnetic. You're not going to be Magneto, all right? And no amount of putting coins and spoons on your head is going to prove that, mainly because coins and spoons aren't really magnetic. All right? And so, look, natural immunity, by the way, they talk about, oh, natural immunity, natural immunity. Yeah, natural immunity is good. The problem with natural immunity is that you have to get COVID first in order to achieve it. You got to get raw dogged by the virus in order to get that natural immunity. Now, unfortunately, over 700,000 Americans did not survive getting raw dogged. And no doubt, countless others would not have survived either had they not gotten vaccinated in the first place or worn masks. Okay? And yes, by the way, now the conservative focus is not on vaccination because they hate that, but they say, well, we have treatments. We have treatments. Look at hydroxychloroquine, which doesn't work. Look at the what is it? The Regeneron. Oh, we got the Regeneron. Now, Regeneron does work, That is effective. But then they're like, well, then we get the Z-Pack, and then we got the ivermectin, and then they take all those together, and one of them does work, the others don't, but then they say, oh, well, it must be the ivermectin. No, it was the Regeneron, which, by the way, Regeneron costs a lot of money. Regeneron is $2,500 per treatment. That's $1,250 a piece for just one of the 2-drug cocktail. Okay. Now, look, $2,500, that's nothing if you make $34 million a year. All right. However, there are people without health insurance. There are poor people that have a lot harder time being able to afford those treatments. And that's, of course, if the government's not paying for it. Now, if the government's paying for it, that means more taxpayer money going into the pocket of Big Pharma, which is opposed to, of course, a $20 vaccine, which is also created by Big Pharma. Either way, Big Pharma is getting paid. Now, $20 versus $2,500, plus, the average stay for a hospital visit for COVID-19, if you happen to get sick, like seriously ill, is upwards of $20,000. And in instances where that's not paid by the government, that's on you and in your insurance. Either way, you're using either your own money or taxpayer money that are going to these hospitals or that are going to Big Pharma. That ends up being far more than what you would pay even if it weren't free for a vaccine. So the numbers make absolutely no sense. In fact, you would think that Big Pharma would want you to get sick, which they don't because it's bad for their reputation because they developed the vaccines, and take Regeneron. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. In fact, as I said before, the $20 vaccine, in many cases prevents you from getting sick enough to go to the hospital and need the expensive treatments in the first place. It just doesn't make any sense. Just doesn't make any sense why people would, think that these other drugs, which, by the way, getting a prescription for ivermectin, you can't just get it from your doctor, right? Most doctors on insurance doesn't want to cover it because it doesn't work. And so you also have a lot of doctors that won't prescribe it. Unless, of course, you're Joe Rogan, who has millions of dollars and is famous. Unless you're Kyrie Irving, which is, again, incredibly wealthy. Of course, the doctor's going to be like, yo, I can hook you up with the ivermectin. Sure. And that's exactly what happens. Most people don't do that. And so they can't go and get a prescription, and they end up having to raid the Tractor Supply store for the non-human version of ivermectin. Total ridiculousness. And by the way, the American, America's Frontline Doctors was caught running a scheme where they, of course, will push people into doing these so-called doctor consultations, telehealth, which will then go, oh yeah, we will prescribe you with ivermectin. By the way, give us $90 for the telehealth, whereas again, you can go get a free vaccine. And by the way, once you get your prescription, you're gonna have to pay this company out of pocket to ship the ivermectin and Z-Pack and all this stuff to you separately. So it's gigantic. I think they made something like $5.7 million at the beginning of the year just off this scam. It's absolute ridiculousness. But anyway, I'm getting off the, kind of getting off the point here. But understand that generally you're SOL with America's healthcare system, which is based on profit. You're a regular working person, you're not going to be able to afford those treatments, the Regeneron stuff. You're actually better off getting a vaccine. So that's why this is ultimately stupid. And by the way, it's not even about personal freedom. If it just affected him, totally fine. However, this can infect others. And also, by the way, he has a larger platform and could convince others, and maybe have convinced others, not to get vaccinated by spreading nonsense conspiracies about the vaccine. That's why this is dangerous. That's why he's not being allowed to play. because he's setting a terrible example for his fans and also could, potentially infect staff or even, people that are at these games. Now, the same issue with Joe Rogan. And by the way, I think Russell Brand are also, off the rails in spreading bullshit, debunk conspiracies. It's the same kind that go around every time there's a pandemic and a vaccine. Understand that we have seen this movie before. Pandemic comes around, kills a lot of people. Scientists develop a vaccine. Bunch of dipshit hardliners decide not to take it. The pandemic decides to then, of course, lingers as a result. Comes back, maybe in bigger waves, kills more people. And the only thing that gets us out of the cycle happen to be vaccine mandates. I mean, look at the 1918 influenza. It's exactly what happened. So, all right, one more last video here from Howard Stern. Take a look.
I'll tell you what, though, I don't know who runs the Brooklyn Nets, but I wish they were running the country. I love this. I love it. Basically saying, listen, douchebag, you got to do what is right. That's it. We got people here. We got teammates. We got to protect, blah, 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 blah.
I don't think I could have put it better. Yeah, you're being a douchebag. Yeah, you're not doing what's right. So guess what? We're going to do what we can to pressure you by making it as annoying as possible to, for you to go around and infect people, right? And not get vaccinated. Understand that we can, I'm against holding people down and sticking them with a vaccine, sticking them with a needle. I think that's terrible. I think that's wrong. That's an actual violation of your human rights, right? But mandates saying, well, you can either do this or you can't participate in this fun thing or go into this certain building. I think that is fair. And so, yes, it may be annoying, but that's kind of the point. Kind of the point. And so, I'm sorry, but I think these mandates are the only way to try to put this COVID shit behind us. I'm very much in favor. Young men are having heart issues after taking the vaccine. Fake news. Total bullshit. Garbage. Look, it's anti-vax. Don't do anti-vax nonsense in my comment section. It doesn't do any good. It's not true, for one. And I'm sorry, but if you're repeating that, you're being incredibly ignorant and anti-science. All right. One more here. Go to Fartenberry. Yeah, I don't have a video for that. Whoops. All right. A Nebraska Republican is expecting to be indicted soon for lying about taking foreign donations. Fun. All right, so this is Representative Jeff Fartenberry from Nebraska and says he's expected to be indicted, but denies that he had lied to the FBI. Now, this is about, of course, illegal campaign contributions from a Nigerian Lebanese billionaire who actually is a prolific donor to the Clintons. So the 9-term Republican was among the 4 GOP lawmakers accused of taking contributions funneled from foreign billionaire Gilbert Shaguri through a group of Californians between 2012 and 2016, and faces potential prosecution for alleged misleading statements to investigators, reported the Omaha World Herald. Fartenberry allegedly received about $30,200 through this scheme, although his campaign says, I don't know, I didn't know where the money came from. I didn't know it came from a foreign national. And so, once I knew, of course, I was going to, work with investigators. Yes, I don't want that foreign money. So now this is interesting because taking foreign donations obviously is illegal. Everybody knows that. It's actually one of the few campaign finance laws that actually gets enforced. One of the few. So now this was part of an investigation into what are basically straw donations. You've heard of straw purchases before, for example, when it comes to guns. Well, straw donations is essentially the same thing. So basically, you want to funnel money into the American political system. All right, well, you just lie about where the donation is coming from, give it to someone else who then gives it to the intended politicians. That's it. So now, according to Open Secrets, Chaudhary, a foreign national, routed approximately $180,000 to 4 different U.S. candidates. And these are to their campaign committees through these straw donors over the course of 3 different election cycles. According to the FEC contribution records, the straw donor gave to the Joint Fundraising Committee supporting the 2012 presidential bid of Senator Mitt Romney, as well as the campaigns of Representative Darrell Issa, Representative Jeff Fartenberry, and former Representative Lee Terry, now a senior advisor at Kelly, Dry, and Warren. So now Chaudhary got in trouble for this and admitted that the funds were intended to support these candidates and was aware that the contributions were made by giving his money under the name of another individual as illegal conduit contributions, according to court records. So he ended up actually paying about $1.8 million in fines as a result. So now, as I mentioned, he's a prolific Clinton donor as well. And so, wait, why is the Clinton donor given to Republicans? And why is a foreign national Clinton donor giving to Republicans? Weird. A very strange story. All right. So now, again, it's not the first time he's gotten some scrutiny with those donation habits. So now he actually gave to a group that had ties to the Democratic Party. Now, this was a nonprofit voter registration group. All right. And so gave that money. And oh, look, a few months after that donation, Chaudhary and his family were guests at the Clinton White House. And by the way, he also gave to the Clinton Foundation. So he was at the Clinton White House holiday dinner for top Democratic Party supporters. Fascinating. Chaudhary did not, of course, donate to the party itself, as he was barred from doing so, but he also arranged, and was, again, very friendly towards the Clintons, helped arrange a 6-figure speaking fee for former President Clinton at a Caribbean event. So now understand that, Democrats will take money that indirectly and kind of skirt the law, but not actually break the law, right? So kind of like, ignore the spirit of the law, even though they technically follow the law, and take the money in like at least in a indirect way with the Clinton Foundation. Republicans, however, they're like, what? I break law. I take money, I break law. I don't care. I jump in it. I'm getting the money. So now the most frustrating thing about this entire story is that Fartenberry is not in trouble for taking the money. So he gets the money, but then just says, I didn't know who it was from. I just don't know. His campaign says we were unaware. And of course, okay, that's a plausible story considering it is a straw donor. However, he could be in trouble for what he told or did not tell agents during the investigation, which of course says that maybe he knew that this was not above board. In fact, according to documents released by prosecutors in California who were investigating this case, one of the billionaire's associates, who was actually making the donations, Tawfiq Baklani of Washington, D.C., told investigators that he had run into Fartenberry after the fundraiser, during of which $30,200 was given to the congressman. In that meeting, Baklani said Fartenberry asked him if he felt that anything was wrong with the fundraiser. Baklani falsely replied, no, and then asked why. Fartenberry responded, because it all came from the same family. So Baklani is involved with this. So now campaign reports indicated that the Nebraskan received contributions from 8 people. 5 of the donors had the last name Ayub. Interesting. So maybe he knew, or maybe he suspected something was up, but kept the money anyway. And so now, once people started asking questions, then he started going around and saying, oh my God, I need to set up a defense fund. And that happened in 2019. Or was that in 2018? And then in 2019, decided to take that money, $30,000, and split it and donate it to 2 different charities. Wait, if you didn't do anything wrong, if you didn't think that anything was wrong or weird, why would you set up a defense fund for this and then immediately donate the money? Several years after you had received that exact amount of money, $30,200. Seems a little convenient. Now, one more thing, right? So Fartenberry, actually a couple more things. Fartenberry released a video from his truck. I'm not going to show it to you. I'm just going to tell you what was in it real quick. He said, "We will fight these charges. I did not lie to them, the investigators. This is wrong on so many levels. I feel so personally betrayed. I just thought we were trying to help. We were trying to help by taking a gigantic donation from a major Clinton donor. But we didn't know about it. We didn't know about it. I'm so betrayed. You know, I really feel bad for you." So now one extra last thing, as I said. So this is the same guy. If you're wondering why this guy's name is familiar, Fartenberry, where have you heard Fartenberry before? Oh, right. This is the same guy who got really, really triggered, very, very angry when somebody called him and defaced a sign, his campaign sign, with this. Let me show you. In a second. Oh my God. Strong families, strong communities, strong odor. Jeff Fartenberry. All right. Oh, the googly eyes do it every time. Every single time. I love it. So this guy looked at that sign and said, "I'm enraged. I am so mad. I am so mad. I'm gonna threaten people and I'm gonna tattle on them for liking the picture on Facebook. If you liked that picture on Facebook, Jeff Fartenberry was coming for you. He's gonna come to take you down." And he tried. For example, there was a professor of political science who liked the picture because it's hilarious, right? And Fartenberry was like, "Oh no, you like vandalism and you like violence." He equated this to political violence. What? I mean, again, that political science director did not actually do that. He did not deface the sign, which, by the way, again, that is vandalism. You shouldn't do it. That said, even though you shouldn't do it because it technically it is illegal, and it's not very nice to do, but it's also fucking hilarious. So now, fast forward to now. Now they're convinced that them getting in trouble for taking illegal donations, because there's no doubt that they didn't actually receive the money. They did. Whether they knew about it, that's the question. They're convinced that the entire thing is nothing more than a political hit job. Fartenberry's wife, Celeste, released a statement, emailed to supporters on Tuesday, saying that this indictment has all the marks of being a political attack, a bogus charge manufactured to take him out. Triggered. Sad. Look, as far as whether or not he'll actually get in trouble for this, as always, we'll see. We'll see. But hopefully, we're gonna continue to follow the Fartenberry story as it continues to develop. Well, hopefully it he doesn't make too much of a stink about it. Only so many fart puns you can do, or that you can think of on short notice.
It's like a Sharknado, except with poop.
Okay. All right. Anyway, that's enough.
Please clap.
I didn't mean to push that, but still. All right. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got for you today. Thank you for going on the Nation Meet today. Appreciate it. Like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very helpful if you do so. Jonathan, Lighter here in the super chat says, wise career move for a war criminal. I believe talking about Colin Powell. And Gabby Mathis, thank you very kindly for the $5. Appreciate that. Very, very appreciate that. All right, so let's see. MLG 1977, thank you for cheering 10 bits. Appreciate that as well. So we gotta really work on increasing that Twitch presence. Very, very, yeah, need to build that up. So we need to get more viewers on Twitch, and of course on Facebook. Thank you to my lovely Facebook and YouTube audiences as well. All of you, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Hey, look at that. We've got trash to take out. Got a little bit of garbage. Lots and lots of garbage to take out today. Had a couple of them. So, all right. Thank you. We'll see y'all tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, Nation. Have a fun day. See you Wednesday.
I like my meat.
Wet ass P-word.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Amazing.
Please clap.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
Of it, you must never let the flag touch the ground for any reason, ever, for it is sin. But they don't do the same thing for people overseas that they're actively bombing. Hey, Jeff Oldorf, thank you for the raiding party of 15. Welcome, Raiders. Welcome back to the Surf Times. It's been a while. 7-day ban. I'm back.